welcome one, welcome all to yet again another episode of Wrestling's Worst Podcast, where we look at the utter shite that has been delivered to us in the world of professional wrestling. And I am joined yet again by a guest, not just one guest, it is two. They are the co-hosts of the S&M Show over in the States. You've heard one before, that is Michael Larkin, and also his co-host, one Stevie Nics. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Doing well, Dave. What's up, buddy?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
No, absolute pleasure. And Steve, first time, obviously, we've done a podcast together. I'm looking forward to it. And if you just want to give the people out there, obviously just let them know where they can find you guys and obviously what you guys do in regards to the S&M Show, if they've not heard this before.
Sure. Facebook is S&M Show Podcast, S&M Network Shows. Give us a like. The Twitter on my end is at SM Show 1 or at MCL92. The SoundCloud is MC Larkin92. The Instagram is Larkin_92. And of course, we are on the Swerve Talk Network. So, homie, hit them with the Instagram and the Twitter.
And on Twitter, I'm Steve Nics SM. And on Instagram, Isles Mets SM.
Fantastic. Right, guys, so this basis of this episode, obviously you've heard Mike before, massive wrestling fan, full of knowledge. Well, his co-host couldn't be further away, really, let's say. So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of get inside the head of a non-wrestling fan and see what it is, why they don't like something that we're quite fond about. So let's start right at the beginning. When were you first ever, Steve, introduced to wrestling?
It was probably about when I was like 9 or 10. I believe it or not, I was actually into wrestling for a little while when I was a kid. From about like 98, 99 to like 02, maybe even a little before that. Yeah, when I was a kid, I was big in wrestling. I was just during the Attitude Era, right? That was during like 97 and 02, like
yep,
the Attitude Era, right?
Yep.
So I was actually big into it then, and I don't know what happened. I just kind of fell out of it, and kind of really just moved. I don't want to say moved on from it. I guess I kind of did, but like ever since I met Mike Larkin, like I've been kind of like kept abreast of it because he's so into it, and like I don't. Let me just say, I don't hate it. I don't hate wrestling. Like I rag on it all the time on the show, but I do it to get under his skin. I don't actually. It's gonna shock you. I don't hate. I actually kind of enjoyed it. Well, we went to some live events, and I've seen. I watched some. What did we watch? We watched like Raw, and we watched like SmackDown.
SmackDown. Yep.
Yeah, and I actually enjoy the show. Like, I'm just not into it like hardcore like he is, and like a lot of your listeners probably are. I'm very much a casual fan, I guess you would say. And that's the loosest definition of the term casual as you can use, because I don't really follow it on a week-to-week basis. But I know of it though, and I know some things. I'm just not hardcore into it, and I think that in that sense, as you probably have heard if you've heard our show, I'm not as forgiving of some things as maybe Mike Larkin or somebody else of his cloth would.
Yes.
What I'm going to do, I've got a few storylines from the history, some going back to like the 90s, probably during the era you watched it, some more recent, some bit before then. Basically going to go through the storylines, and I want, if you've heard the storyline, to what your opinion of that was, and if you haven't, then obviously me and Mike will go into a bit more detail, and then get your opinion on it at the end.
Sure.
Okay. So up first, do you have any recollection of the Boogeyman?
No, I don't.
Right, Mike, this is during your peak of being about 12 or 13 years old, I believe. Boogeyman, if you just want to explain to Steve in a bit more detail.
So, the Boogeyman was a gentleman by the name of Marty Wright. He, for those who don't know, if you want to see from a film standpoint, he was actually in Any Given Sunday, the football movie with LL Cool J. And he was also in the $1 Million Tough Enough. He got eliminated because he lied about his age. He was actually 40 when you have to actually be in your 20s to compete in that competition.
He was Danny Almonte?
Yeah, he was one of those people, yes. So he goes, and they wound up signing him because they enjoyed his passion. He had he was painted. His face was painted. He had a clock, and he had the voodoo stick, which he shook, and he shook like he had a seizure, which hey, and he smashed the clock over his face, and he used to say, "I'm the boogeyman, and I'm coming to get you." And he used to eat worms, live worms. And he was a character. He wrestled Booker T and Sharmell at WrestleMania. Then he got fired, and then he got rehired because he was training with Booker T at his wrestling school. So yeah, Boogeyman was something. Yeah.
There was also, hey, I'm sure Mike will be fondly remember this. There was a storyline back in I want to say like 2007, 8, where do you know JBL, who's one of the commentators now on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Right. Well, JBL at the time had a manager / image consultant, this woman called Jillian Hall, and Jillian Hall had this growth on her face, and it was quite the large. It looked like I don't know, some form of like bun, like a croissant or something stuck to the side of her face. And the Boogeyman proceeded to on live TV on Monday Night Raw, eat that from her face and just eat it in front of all the fans.
As Dave said, yeah, this was around early 2006, so. He bites off Jillian's thing on the SmackDown, and then him and JBL have like a 2-minute match at the Royal Rumble 2006 because the Boogeyman couldn't go more than 3-4 minutes because he sucked. So he avoids the clothesline from hell, boot, pump handle slam, 1, 2, 3. It was very brief, very short, and the Boogeyman defeated a former WWE champion and won John Bradshaw Layfield.
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, it sounds like this guy's gimmick was gross out, right?
Yes, it was very
kind of a deal.
Yeah.
What made you think that was going to work?
I don't know. That was Vince McMahon and all those guys at the time. So they gave him the character of the Boogeyman. He ate the worms, and he just did that. I don't know. It was what it was. And they put him on the new ECW, or the WWE ECW as they call it, on Sci-Fi. So it fit into the whole Sci-Fi character, I guess. And then he got released in 2008, I believe, because his last match was against Kane on ECW. Then he was gone.
And then he returned, did not come back in the 13 Rumble for a little appearance, something along them lines.
Yeah, he appeared at the Slammies, he appeared in the Royal Rumble, and he's done a couple appearances afterwards, though.
So but he wasn't great though.
No,
it
was far from it. Yeah, it was just a 40-year-old voodoo clock smashing worm eating. Don't get me wrong, the guy was big. He was 6 foot odd. He was quite muscly. He was a big dude, but yeah, it was live worms. That was always got me, John. Why not have him? I mean, you've got kids in the audience, fuck's sake. Why not have sweetie worms or candy worms or whatever, but actual live worms? And he used to put them in his opponent's mouths and stuff after he'd beat him.
And what cracked me up is when he was on the Indies, he didn't even go by the Boogeyman because I believe the WWE owned the name, so he went by the name the Nightcrawler.
Yeah, even though the Boogeyman is it's a known story from every child that. Throughout their life, at one point in time, their parents have told them the story of the Boogeyman. But WWE, being WWE, have to trademark the name of everything.
Well, they got to trademark everything.
Everything. All right, moving on from the Boogeyman then. So what do we get from that then, Steve? Just fucking grotesque.
It's just, I don't understand what the appeal is of being a total gross out. Especially like you said, isn't it supposed to be a family show? That's kind of unnecessary, I think.
Well, this is before the TV PG stuff because 2006. This is before they went into TV PG.
But still, kids are definitely watching it though. I watched
it exactly.
14, and I didn't care.
Yeah.
Right. So next one, Steve. Now I know you'll be fully aware of David Arquette.
Yes.
Right. Are you fully aware of the time when David Arquette was world champion?
I know the story. Mike Larkin has actually told me this story a couple of times, actually, and it's actually, I find it pretty funny. Mike Larkin gets upset about it a little bit, I think, but I just laugh at it every time. Is that what we're talking about when he won the belt?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just think it's hilarious.
Because he knows how upset I get by it because it's just asinine.
What's the harm of having a celebrity win the belt? You're getting exposure for your brand.
I agree.
See, that's what Vince Russo put. Yes, I agree. That's what Vince Russo put. I guess it's just it tarnishes the it tarnishes the championship when you had guys like Ric Flair and Harley Race and all those guys hold the belts, and then you put it on fucking David Arquette and in a tag team match where it was him and DDP against Eric Bischoff and what was it, Hulk Hogan or whoever it was?
Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett, thank you. Jeff Jarrett and Eric Bischoff against DDP and David Arquette, and Arquette pins Bischoff to win the championship. And then, this was around the time when Ready to Rumble was coming out and they did the movie. But, I mean, yeah, I guess if it promotes the movie and it gets, I'll get you on the cover of TV Guide, it's something. But still, it tarnishes the legacy of the championship is what pissed off wrestling fans. Pretty much what the backline.
Here's where I come from with that. You're WCW, okay? You're competing head to head with WWE. You're not going to have the reputation that WWE has. So sometimes when you're in that spot, I think sometimes you got to take the low road and go for the cheap promotion because they needed all the help they can get. And obviously they didn't end up doing very well and ultimately against WWE. So I don't really see that as being too bad because it's a publicity stunt and you knew they're going to try something like that. They did whatever they could to try to get a leg up on WWE. I don't think it was that big of a deal, but I know people like my buddy Mike Larkin don't seem to like it that much, but I think that's more from a purist kind of a thing. I'm not a purist, so I don't really care, but
I think
it's funny.
I think for me, I remember back when it happened, it was during the peak to an extent of the Monday Night Wars, where you had obviously Raw and Nitro going head to head on every Monday night. I was very much a WWF guy. WCW, I knew of it, and for me, I just saw it as that's where all the old 80s guys went for a bit of a payday. So when they put the title on David Arquette, I found it absolutely hilarious. And looking back now, obviously I'm with Mike, it does tarnish a belt that I've seen guys like Ric Flair, Sting, etc., Hulk Hogan hold the belt. But imagine if it happened in 2016, and we used someone on the level of David Arquette in the movie world and put the world title on him. Imagine the coverage, especially in the era that we live with social media. Imagine the coverage that would gain.
And you also got to think, you look at 2000, that was another outrage one. I think they also outraged when Vince Russo's also mentioned in a WCW meeting when they wanted to put the championship on Tank Abbott. And they were like, oh no, we can't put it on Tank Abbott.
Well, that was one of his early downfalls, wasn't it? He wanted it on Tank Abbott, and people were like, hang on, what are you on about? He's like, well, think about it. And to be fair, looking back, this is one that's not on my list, Steve, but as we're here, we might as well. Are you familiar with the name Tank Abbott?
Not at all.
Tank Abbott was ex-UFC fighter. He was one of the originals with UFC way back when it was starting to gather a bit of momentum.
When you had guys like Shamrock and all those guys.
Yeah, and Chuck Liddell.
Oh, Shamrock! I remember Shamrock.
Chuck Liddell. He was one of the younger guys at this time coming through.
Yeah. Chuck Liddell.
And basically, WCW brought Tank Abbott in with the idea of pushing this mainstream to an extent in Vince Russo's eyes. Mixed martial artist, and they thought, what's the perfect thing to do? Let's put the world title on him. And they just absolutely laughed him off, and that was one of the steps of Vince Russo leaving the booking committee of WCW at the time. Right, so what do you think of that then? With the whole David Arquette, is it exactly like how I see? Absolutely fucking hilarious.
I just think, I think it's funny. I just don't see a problem with it, like some people do. I just think it's funny that people get so. It's funny that it happened, and it's funny that there's people that get upset about it because it's obviously a publicity stunt. I mean, you can't be so, hardened to the fact that they're clearly trying to get attention for this. Come on.
Yeah, totally agree.
Totally
agree. Right, so next one, Steve. Are you familiar with Rey Mysterio?
Yes, I am.
Marvelous. Are you familiar with Eddie Guerrero?
Not as much.
Know of the name?
I know of the name, but I'm not too familiar with who he is.
Okay. Well, a few years back, they had a storyline where the storyline culminated in a ladder match for the custody of a child.
Okay. What the fuck?
Basically, it was Rey Mysterio's actual real-life child,
Oh my God.
Storyline purposes was Eddie Guerrero obviously had a bit of a dabble way back when, and Damien, who was the child, could be Eddie's. So they had a ladder match hanging above the ring that you had to get by climbing a ladder. Was a contract. That contract was for the custody of Damien.
Oh my God.
So Rey Mysterio's son Dominic.
Sorry, not Damien. Dominic. Yeah.
Oh no, you're fine, dude. So he was talking about that Eddie Guerrero comes out, and this is what sold merchandise for WWE Shop. I'm your papi, Dominic. I'm your daddy. And they actually sold "I'm your papi" T-shirts on WWEshop.com at the time. So you had all these matches with Rey Mysterio just beating Eddie Guerrero on pay-per-view, whether it be Judgment Day, the Great American Bash, and this all culminated in the matchup with Rey and Eddie in the custody battle in the ladder match for the championship, where Vicky Guerrero, Mr. Q, just a lot of spots were but the matchup, Rey ultimately won and he got custody of his son, and then they had one final battle in the cage on SmackDown with Eddie Guerrero ultimately winning.
What? Why did? Who? First of all, whose idea was this? Is this Vince?
Oh,
probably Vince.
Everything's Vince. Everything weird and twisted is Vince.
Yes, this is the same guy who wanted to. Well, this is the same guy, mind you, that wanted to have an incest angle with his daughter. So.
Yeah.
Oh my! I can't even. I just what the fuck? Like, what are the kids? I want to know what the kid thought of it. Was the kid like okay with this? Like, how? And also, how old is this kid?
Oh,
well, Dominic at the time was very young.
Yeah, 6,
yeah, he's
7.
Like 7.
Yeah.
And the kid is what are what are the moms like? If the mom was okay with this, and like, what does the kid think? Like, there's like. Well, there's so much potential to get fucked up, like mentally, off over shit like that.
You got to also understand that ECW did the same thing back then. In the original ECW with Tyler Fullington, the Sandman's son, when they did that angle with Sandman and Raven, and Tyler, Daddy, you're a drunk. I worship Raven. So they did that back in the '90s with ECW. So I kind of understood where they were coming from, but yeah, it's still a little when you see it.
But was it like real, or was it? Did the kid know it was fake? Like, I mean, like
no,
scripted, whatever.
Well, the kid knew it was scripted. I know
how you feel about that word, Mike Larkin. I know you don't like that, the fake word.
No, it's fine. I know wrestling. I know wrestling scripted. It is what it is. I'm just saying,
for like the sake of this kid, like this is a lot to be dragged up into when you're 7.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I don't know, but I was uncomfortable watching it. Not one of my favorite storylines, but it was what it was. It was tough.
Sounds so crazy and just messed up, Like, to me, there's a line that you just shouldn't cross, like, even if it's, like, entertainment purposes. Like, you're talking about a real-life kid here. Like, let's I mean, I don't know. I just don't think that I wouldn't do something like that if it were me, but,
Now,
there's a lot of things I would have done given that. So.
Now, talking of crossing the line, familiar with Shawn Michaels, yeah?
Yes, I am.
Familiar with his tag team partner, the Almighty?
A little bit, yeah. I didn't really watch a whole lot when he was doing like the tag team stuff, but yeah, a little bit.
I meant the Almighty God.
Oh.
No.
Oh, no. Stop. Oh, God.
So, Vince McMahon came up with his own religion, McMahonism. And Vince McMahon is in the church there, and, may God strike me down. Shane moves out of the way. He sips up the holy water and spits it like Triple H. And, he goes, I don't know how he does that. Blessed be the name of Vincent Kennedy McMahon. And then so Vince McMahon made a match at Backlash 2006. It was Vince and Shane versus Shawn Michaels and his tag team partner God, pretty much playing over the fact that Shawn Michaels is a born again. And then, we have at the pay-per-view, he introduces God, does Vince, and then we have the spotlight coming down, and he has the holy music at first, and then he starts playing Somebody Call My Mama, a little Ernest Miller, Brodus Clay theme song. God's getting jiggy with it, everybody, and Vince is dancing, doing the strut like he does. And yeah, so he pretty much made a mockery out of religion and all that good stuff.
I mean, listen, I'm all for making a mockery out of religion, but dude, that's just bad taste.
Of course you are. So, yes.
What is I don't know. I just.
Do you know what I find, Steve? What's the most confusing thing about this whole storyline, right? Is so Shawn Michaels back in like the 96, 97s, it was a ball ache in Vince McMahon's pocket. It was smashed on drugs, alcohol. It was losing his smile. Also, but he was like one of the top guys. So as much as it was like one of the most annoying fuckers in the world. because he was constantly off his face. He was also always like with Vince McMahon. Now he went away because of it. He got a back injury and he came back in 2002. But in real life, he was a born again Christian. It stopped all the partying, the booze, the drugs, all the painkillers, everything. He'd stopped it all, and he'd obviously reborn himself, or reborn himself. That was perfect English, that wasn't it? So he'd obviously came back as this born again Christian, and it was like going back to what we were saying earlier, like with the custody battle storyline. Who actually agreed to this? Is like Shawn Michaels. He's now praying to the Almighty, but he'll happily take the piss out of it in a match. It's just do you know what I mean? How committed to the cause are you, Shawn Michaels? Do you know what I mean? That you'll happily take the mick out of your own religion on such a grand stage.
I've questioned that many years with Shawn when he talks about that. I know Hurricane Helms was one to pretty much say that about Shawn, like how born again is he? But yeah, it's very debatable. One sexy boy himself, Michael Hickenbottom.
Wait, so Vince was pretending to be God?
No, Shawn, he was making a mockery of Shawn Michaels and God, so that's why he put it. So he was pretty much, saying that he's the God, and, I got my own religion, McMahonism.
Here's the thing. Like, why are you bringing a guy's real life struggle into the script or whatever?
Well, they did that in WCW when having Scott Hall getting drunk all the time on Nitro, bringing up apart his real life alcoholism. So it has happened.
I don't know. I just like why it just seems so unnecessary to do that kind of thing. Like I think there should be a line where you get to leave their private lives in their private lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially something that can be so raw to people like religion.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have no problem with satirizing religion and all that, but I mean, this guy is obviously this guy's life. Like, you're not talking about something that's just la-di-da, and it doesn't affect anyone. This is I'm surprised he would even agree to do something like that. Honestly, I mean, that's kind of crazy and messed up.
I think that's the thing. He agreed to it. It's like that in itself. That's got so many more questions than answers.
Yeah, I mean that's weird.
Speaking of weird, moving on. Right. Are you familiar with Mark Henry?
No.
Big 6 foot black guy. Okay. Now, have you ever heard of the name Mae Young?
No.
Okay. Well, close your eyes. I've got a story for you. It's 1999.
Oh boy.
It's 1999. Okay. Mark Henry's mid-30s, struggling with life. He's not really got a path. He's not even got an opponent half the time in WWF at the time. He's struggling. And then he stumbles across this beautiful young 70-year-old Mae Young. And they embrace, let's say. Their eyes meet across a wrestling ring. They embrace. And they embrace a little bit too much to the point where he gets her pregnant. Now.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Here we.
That's only the start. So
just let him keep going.
So we go through a 9-month birth labour period in the space of like 4 weeks of television, and by the time she gives birth, she's not got a pregnancy belly or anything like that. Because obviously they've not thought it through. But when she gives birth to a hand, an actual prosthetic hand that comes out in all this goo, and they have a full labour segment, a full labour sketch, and you've got a couple of backstage guys that are throwing up, and yeah, so they had a 6-month payoff of this relationship. It didn't really help the career of Mark Henry at all.
What the?
One sexual chocolate, Mark Henry, and May.
I can't. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start with that. That's messed up. Like what the hell?
Dave, I'm so glad that you brought that one up.
There was one segment. God. There was one backstage segment where it may have been Valentine's Day or something like that, and they had a segment where they were both in a hotel room bed, and they'd made it look like that she'd just gone down to give a little bit of how's your father, and then he bought edible underwear, edible panties. Yeah, it was all a bit weird. And I think I was like maybe 14, 15 at this time. It was very weird.
Yeah, she's like, sweetheart, I'll be your Valentine. And they're smoking the cigars in the bed. Yep.
What the fuck?
She's
How
giving
old
birth.
did you say she was? She was 70?
She was like 80, right, dude?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, do they know how, like, female anatomy works? Like, first of all, it's very hard to mount an 80-year-old. And also, there is this thing called menopause where, you know, it's impossible for a woman to get pregnant at that age. So, what the fuck?
Yep,
Dude.
Gerald Briscoe puking after the hand gets born, and then we actually saw Hand real life with when AJ Lee was the general manager, and you know he was talking to his mother Mae Young there in that one episode of Raw.
Yeah, they actually, which it doesn't happen that many times where they'll actually go back to something that they did 5 years before. So they had a backstage segment where Mae Young appeared with this guy dressed in a hand costume, and she went, "Oh, this is my son."
It was just hilarious.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about that. That's too much.
Okay. What about this one? Are you familiar with Tori Wilson?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you familiar with Dawn Marie?
A little bit, not too much.
Okay. Are you familiar with a storyline back in the day where the real life of Tori Wilson got brought into a storyline where he was going to get married to Dawn Marie? Al Wilson at the time was in his 70s. Dawn Marie was in her early 30s. And Dawn Marie offered to call the wedding off if Tori would have a lesbian moment with her in a hotel, which was kind of screened.
What? That's see now. Again, you got the real relatives, and you know, old people and sexual situations. Like, is there any filters in the WWE boardroom where they just go, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't going to work out like we think it is. Like, does anyone like double check these things before they just put it on the air? Because it just sounds so gross and so inappropriate, and it doesn't sound like there's an appeal from any angle to it. I mean, just dude, come on! Like, what is like? And then you said they had like a pay-per-view sexual moment. Does that like mean that they had sex or something? What does that mean?
So yeah, basically on the pay-per-view, Dawn Marie she was going to show the audience what happened in the hotel room. So they played on the video screen, both of them coming in. It was like soft porn up to the point of them taking any clothes off, like they cut the camera away.
Oh my god.
Yeah, 10-year-old Mike Larkin watching this back in the day. This is the start of the Ruthless Aggression era, 2002 to 2003.
Oh my god. And people paid to see this?
Yep, that was on Armageddon 02, which I believe you guys will be covering very, very soon over there at Ruthless Aggression.
We have just recorded it. It'll be actually coming out tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to hearing about that.
I'm regretting eating a whole ice cream sundae before I came on the air now.
Well, did you also got to remember, Al Wilson wound up dying from too much sex from Dawn Marie. She pretty much screwed him to death.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to add that.
In real life or in the storyline?
No, in the storyline. Yeah, so the culmination of the storyline is he dies because they have too much intercourse on their honeymoon.
That's. Then it led to
killing off the woman's dad,
and then it led to one of the worst matches in Royal Rumble history: Tori Wilson and Dawn Marie in that stepmother versus stepdaughter matchup at Royal Rumble 03.
Yep. There was a segment where they had a fight in the funeral parlor with Al Wilson in the coffin.
Oh man.
They don't have consultants on these things. Like, they don't have story consultants where like they say, maybe we shouldn't do this. Like, there's no one in that boardroom or on that staff that says, you know, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe we shouldn't give birth to a hand on live TV. Maybe we shouldn't fuck an old man to death.
Well,
there's no one who's double checking these things to see if they're gonna fly with an audience. Like,
well, this is when Vince just went balls to the walls in 2002, 2003 with his storyline. So yeah, he just pretty much threw anything out there.
I mean, are people afraid to say no to Vince McMahon? Is that what it is?
There's an extent to that, yes, I would say. Wouldn't you agree with that, Dave?
Oh, 100%. 100%. You say no, you lose your job.
Because I mean,
Simple as.
someone needs to say no to some of these things. I mean, that just makes sense to me. I mean, come on, like you gotta have some sort of boundaries. Come on.
Speaking of boundaries, right? Have you ever heard of a wrestler called Snitsky?
No.
Now, I'm going to hand this one over to Michael, because I'm sure Michael will be able to go into this in a little bit more detail. When Snitsky kicked the baby.
Okay. So they brought in this guy who wrestled in OVW at the time. His real name is Gene Snitsky, N-S-N-I-S-K-Y, but they just shortened it to Gene Snitsky. They added the T. So what they did was they had him debut. He wrestled Kane, and this was at the time when Lita was pregnant with Kane's baby. And he hits Kane in the back with the chair. He falls on Lita. They lose the baby. Snitsky's mocking it on an edition of the highlight reel.
In real life or in the theme?
In the storyline.
Okay, because I see now you gotta tell me if it's like real or in the story.
No, Lita was not pregnant at the time. They had a feud with Kane and Matt Hardy. Matt thought it was his, but it turns out it was Kane's. And then they had a Till Death Do Us Part match at SummerSlam 04, and that's what led to. This was right before Kane and Snitsky. But anyway, Snitsky hits Kane in the back of the chair, falls on top of Lita. Lita loses the baby. Snitsky's on the highlight reel with Chris Jericho and Lita. With the fake baby there, and he kicks and he punts the fake baby into the crowd, and pretty much saying, Lita, you can't have this baby. So he just punted the baby, and just wow. And then Kane and Snitsky had like a feud where I believe he chokeslammed Snitsky off the stage in one match, and then it came to a head at New Year's Revolution of that year. But yeah, just the Kane Snitsky feud was over. The fact of the baby was gone due to the chair shot to the back, and he would start saying it's not my fault, which in actuality it was his fault, but in a way, he used to say it's not my fault.
Punting a baby, really, Mike Larkin? Punting?
He punted the baby. He punted the baby. It wasn't his fault.
Do you see how ridiculous that is? Now that's just absolutely ridiculous. That's just kind of dumb, Mike Larkin.
Yeah, they did a lot of dumb stuff in 2004.
No offense, that's some pretty dumb shit. Okay.
It is. I hated it, but it was what it was. Gene Snitsky wasn't his fault.
I don't know. It's just stupid. That's just some dumb shit. I don't know what else to say to that. That's just dumb. That's just really dumb.
For real.
Yes.
Or is it?
Now, speaking of one which was dumb, incredibly in my eyes, because I was about 13 years old when it happened. Can you remember, or have you ever heard of or come across a wrestler called Val Venus?
No.
Well, Val Venus, the name is... I'll give you an idea of his gimmick first. So Val Venus, his gimmick is a porn star. Okay.
Oh boy.
And what does Venus rhyme with?
Yeah, buddy.
That was the reaction I imagine.
I'll say penis. I don't care. I'll penis.
Yeah.
Penis.
That's the reaction I imagine of the creative meeting or creative room when Vince Russell decided to say this. Or decided to name Val Venus. Well, Val Venus had a very interesting storyline during 1998, I believe, where he was fighting with this group of Japanese wrestlers. And Val Venus, his kind of gimmick or character was that he just slept around. He was quite the whore. And he slept with the wife of the manager of this Japanese group. So they then said that we are going, well, in his own words of the manager, Val Venus, choppy your pee-pee. So they threatened to chop off his dick. So they cut backstage on one episode of Raw. They had Val Venus tied up by his hands to the roof. You had his back to the camera, his naked back to the camera, and it looked like how they were portraying it that his penis was on that table, and then one of the Japanese dudes had a big samurai sword, and as he swung down with the knife, obviously the camera cut away.
Jesus.
So you had
they actually had John Wayne Bobbitt come on and helped out Val Venus because choppy the pee-pee. Mr. Yamaguchi-san, did it. He did it for Mrs. Yamaguchi-san. Sayonara, Yamaguchi-san.
Oh my God.
Well, Kai and Tai, you had Funaki, Dick Togo, and Taka Michinoku were involved in that. They tied up Val, chopped the pee-pee off, and then John Wayne Bobbitt came out and helped him out. So sticking up for Val Venus.
Okay, two things, okay? Number one, that's not racist at all. Number two, again, to reiterate a point that I made earlier, they understand that kids are watching this stuff, right?
Yes.
I mean, you have a porn star and you're chopping off the guy's penis. Like, you have to understand that there are little kids watching this program. Like,
Well,
what in their right mind made them think this would be a good idea to put on their show?
Well, wasn't Vince McMahon like defending when he was on Bob Costas that, kids should not be up at 9 or 10 and they could just change the channel if they don't want to watch it? Wasn't that like his defense when he was on with Costas?
His defense was literally that. Yeah, that I'm not forcing you to watch.
Yeah, and saying that kids shouldn't watch this show only makes them want to watch it more. So he wasn't doing that or anything, right, Mike Larkin?
Absolutely not.
Oh, of course not. Yeah, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't coming from that angle at all.
Absolutely not. Mr. McMahon in his ass. No.
Just so wrong. It's wrong, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's all right. Yeah, so I've got a couple more. Right, so just to quickly run down. So we've had a custody battle. We've had God. We've had a porn star losing his penis. We've had the kicking the baby. And we've had a lot of old people in sexual encounters. What about suicide attempts? A couple of famous ones. There was a referee back in the day called Tim White. Now, Tim White had a bit of a torrid end to his WWE career. He got injured legitimately in a match and he had to retire. But what they decided to do, because he was still under contract, I imagine, decided to have all these little skits backstage that they were filming and putting on on WWE.com, where Tim White was failed suicide attempts, where he tried to shoot himself in the head. I think he tried to hang himself once.
What would make them think that people would want to see that?
I don't know. This was Vince McMahon in 2006, or 2005, 2006. This was, as I said, around the time when Shawn and God came into the fray.
And also, what makes them think that what makes them think that they could benefit from making fun of suicide? Like, what makes them think that that's okay? Like, that's really messed up.
It's not. I mean, yeah, suicide, obviously, it's messed up. I mean, they even did the gun thing, if you want to go back to 1997. Pillman's Got a Gun, where Brian Pillman tried to shoot Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
I mean, suicide is a very, very serious thing. I mean, like, that's not something you should fuck around with ever. Like, I don't care, like, if it's not real. Like suicide is a real affliction, and like it touches real people, and a lot of people know people who've, I would say more people than not, know people who know someone who's committed suicide. I mean, and I don't think that I mean, what makes them think that going on the internet, like using that kind of a plot for online promotion or whatever it was, like what makes them think that's that's bad taste. Of all the things that you've mentioned so far, I think that's the one where it's especially in bad taste. Like that's messed up.
Are you familiar with beaver cleavage?
Yes, I love beaver cleavage. Beaver cleavage is awesome. I love him. He was great. I thought he was great. What's wrong with beaver cleavage?
If it's not the goon, it's beaver cleavage.
Oh, the goon.
You know, Mike and his mom have a thing going on like that.
Just shut your punk ass.
I love drinking that mother's milk, Mike Larkin.
Oh, it was so wrong.
Yes.
Everything about the storyline was wrong. And you know what? Even they tried to cover their tracks and tried to recover themselves by having is it Mariana or something? His missus.
Mariana.
Yeah, having her come out that it was actually weren't his mom, it was actually his girlfriend, but he's actually beating her up, and it's just god. They went from incest to spousal abuse.
And poor Chaz. I mean, he went from Headbanger Mosh to that. Then he was Chaz. Him and D'Lo were in Lowdown. But yeah, poor Chaz. And you can thank Vince Russo for that, because that was a Vince Russo creation.
Like Chaz Bono, Mike Larkin?
Well.
See, I don't have a problem with an incest storyline if it's fake.
Well, they did that with. Yeah, they did that with Katie Lee and Paul Burchill in 2008, the brother and sister incestual thing.
Yeah, but if that's not real, like that's not a big of a deal. Like Vince McMahon and like Stephanie McMahon are actually related. That's messed up. If the characters aren't actually related, that's not that big of a deal. But if they are, then that's totally wrong.
Well, what's even worse about the Vince and Stephanie one is, Steph says no to Vince, and she goes, "Oh, what about Shane? It's your brother."
Yeah.
Again, that's
the father of
totally
the child.
inappropriate.
Exactly.
Totally wrong, because they're actually related. But if they're not actually related, then it's just a plot. It's just an act, and you can play it off as that, and it's not a big deal. See, the line is where if they're actually related, then it's wrong.
Okay. Right. So, final one. Now, for me, and I'm sure a lot of wrestling fans would agree, the worst storyline they've ever done. 2 words. Katie Vick. Are you familiar?
Not at all, but just from Mike Larkin's reaction, I get a sense of what it is.
Necrophilia.
Or how bad it is, I should say. How bad it is.
Necrophilia.
No.
Yes.
No. Okay, is it real necrophilia, or was it just played out?
You saw it was Triple H. It was dressed as Kane. The storyline, long story short, Kane back in the day, he had a car crash and he killed a girl. And Triple H, he knew about it, so to get inside Kane's head, he showed videos of Kane's past, and one of them was Kane in the funeral parlor, and Kane climbed into Katie Vick's coffin, took her clothes off, took his clothes off, and yeah.
Katie.
Now, was she really dead, or was this just all?
It was a doll, pretty much.
It was a mannequin.
The mannequin.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And Triple H, as Kane goes, "Katie, it looks like I just humped your brains out."
It's fine. I guess it's not that bad if it's not real, but the fact that they would suggest something like that, that's bad taste. The fact that you're suggesting that is kind of messed up.
Well, homie, you also got to think of, Triple H did a radio interview about this. I believe it was on Opie and Anthony. He was talking about,
Never heard of that show.
What? Oh, yes. Vince wants him to scream and moan and go louder and all this. And then next door, they're having a funeral. And the guy next door is telling them to keep it down. So they're filming this while a funeral's going on in the next room.
Yeah, that's not inappropriate at all, Mike Larkin.
Exactly, no.
I mean, that's just the fact that someone would think about that in WWE's boardroom is just, that's messed up. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. And like I said, for me, it does go down. It's up there with the worst, purely because of just what they're trying to suggest is going on. And while, like what Mike said, and while an actual funeral was going on, and he wanted them to make louder noises, it's just how inappropriate can you actually be?
I mean, there's got to be people in there that still have some common sense. You can't just go out and do whatever you want and think that you could put it on TV and it'll be okay. I mean, you have an audience that you need to respect. You have kids that are watching. You have the FCC that I'm sure is going to be on your back constantly. You have to think of all these things and take them into consideration before you just put it on the air. I think that Vince sometimes feels like, anything goes in this wrestling organization. So then that's what we're going to do. No holds bar. But you do have to have some holds bar because, it's television and this is still decent society.
Well, look what they did in 2002. You had the Billy and Chuck wedding. You had Katie Vick. You had HLA, Hot Lesbian Action, and pretty much Rosie and Jamal beating up on 2 women who are pretending to be lesbians. So, they pretty much threw no holds barred right there.
I have a question for you guys.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. No, of course.
I remember when I was watching, this is back when I was still watching, there was some storyline that involved, there was suggestion of a dog being killed, and then somebody ate the dog.
Oh shit! Big Boss Man and Al Snow. That's some fresh ground pepper.
Yeah, basically, Al Snow and Big Boss Man at the time were feuding over the hardcore title, and Al Snow had a little puppy, a little Pepper, his little mate, and Big Show decided to kidnap him, kill him, cook him, and then try and play peacemaker with Al, invite him over for a bit of dinner. He said, basically, you're eating your dog.
Holy shit! I remember that.
So then The feud ended with them having a Kennel from Hell match, which was a steel cage surrounded by a Hell in the Cell, and separating the two cages were, I think, about 6 or 7 rabid Rottweilers. But the thing is, they weren't really rabid; they were horny. So what all the dogs were trying to do was hump each other, shit, and piss. And the wrestlers obviously had to play it out that they couldn't. The aim was to obviously escape the 2 cages, but you had to get between the dogs. But the dogs couldn't give a fuck.
And it goes down as one of the worst wrestling matches in WWF or WWE history.
Oh my God! I
Yeah.
remember seeing that. They didn't actually kill the dog, right?
No.
I was because I was watching that and I was still a kid and I'm like, oh my God, I hope that dog didn't actually die.
Yeah, this is from like September 1999, Unforgiven. They did that god awful match. That whole thing was terrible. Al Snow and Pepper and to the Big Boss Man. And then it got worse because Big Boss Man and Big Show with the funeral. And I'm sorry that your daddy croaked. And Big Show's on the back of the casket riding while Big Boss Man's got it attached. Oh God, it was bad.
I remember watching that, and I was a kid, and there's no way to distinguish what's real and what's not real. And I thought they actually killed the dog, and it freaked me out.
Now you got to think karma's coming to Vince now because Vince just got in a crash with his Bentley. But do you really feel bad for Vince McMahon? Can you imagine you get into a car accident with Vince McMahon and you go to assess the situation and you see that man coming out strutting to see what's the problem here, pal?
You're like, well, you're paying for it.
Exactly.
You're the billionaire. You're paying for it. Right, Steve. And Mike. What we'll do, guys, we'll finish that bit there. Before we wrap things up, I've just got a bit of a little quiz that I'm going to give Steve, just to test, see the months of working alongside Mike Larkin and him continuously going on about wrestling. Let's see how much actually stuck.
Okay.
Right, so there's going to be 4 questions, the basic questions that I'd like to think that any casual fan should know. Okay?
Okay.
Question 1. Which wrestler has a T-shirt that has the numbers 316 on it?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That is 1 correct.
That was one of my boys when I was watching. I was big into Stone Cold, and then I jumped ship for The Rock because The Rock got big right afterwards. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go with the new flavor of the week.
All right, question 2. Who is the Undertaker's half brother?
You know what? Mike Larkin has mentioned this. I know for a fact he's mentioned this. I got to think now. Is it Roman Reigns? No,
it's not.
Is it Sting? No, it's not Sting.
No.
Okay, I give up. I don't know who it is.
Remember, this isn't real life. This is wrestling half brother.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Kane.
Oh yeah, Kane. He just mentioned that the other day, and I forget. Oh God damn. All right.
Okay, moving on. Okay, moving on. Question number 3. Who is Mr. McMahon, Vince McMahon's son?
It's Shane, right? Shane McMahon.
There we go. 2 out of 3. Question 4. What does Triple H stand for?
Mike Larkin's mentioned this too. Crap. Hard. Hell is like hell in there. Hard nosed, hell raising.
Nope.
Hardcore. I don't know. I thought I knew, but I guess I don't know.
If I give you the first one, the first H is Hunter.
Oh, Hunter. Hunter. Having hillbilly. I don't know. I give up.
Michael?
Let him know. It's Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Oh, okay. Yeah, See, I forgot that one too.
He used to be the Connecticut Blue Blood. Before he was the Game, he was this rich, snobby Connecticut Blue Blood. Hunter Hearst Helmsley. They pushed him to the moon until the curtain call thing happened at MSG, where him, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were leaving for WCW, the wrestling, at Madison Square Garden. So they all broke character. He got punished, and he was wrestling guys like Henry Godwinn in a hog pen match with a bunch of pigs. And if it wasn't for, him getting in trouble, he would have won the King of the Ring 1996, and then we wouldn't have gotten, talk about your songs, talk about your 316. Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. So in a way, you could thank Triple H for that.
Right, so moving on. This one, we'll not take it up a notch. I want you to name every single title that's in the WWE at the minute.
Okay, right now?
Yeah. So current active belts.
Okay, there's a USA Championship, right?
Yep.
There's the Intercontinental.
Yep.
Right. There's the There's the what's the one he just was talking about the other day? Oh. He's probably mentioned all of them, and I just don't.
Well, yeah, we did predictions for WrestleMania last night on the show. So
yeah, see, and I just see because sometimes when Mike Larkin tells me stuff, I actually just ignore what he says.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I guess
because it just sometimes if there's only so much wrestling stuff I can take, so I'm like, all right, this isn't worth my stuff.
Thank you, Jackass.
There's the Euro, isn't it the World Wrestling? There's the World Wrestling Championship, right?
Yeah.
There's the super, like a super heavyweight thing belt.
No.
Okay.
What about for teams?
I was about to say I was going to give him a hint. The team one, yeah.
Oh, the tag team.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about if it's not a man's title? It's a
women's championship. Is that it?
Yeah. Well, the last one that you didn't get there was the Universal.
Okay, Universal. Oh, that's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah,
that's what Goldberg has now.
Yeah, that's the big red one that looks like a big blot of period blood. Oh, I hate the look. It looks like a fucking toy.
Well, SmackDown has the blue one now. There's a blue one and the red one. So.
Yeah, they all look fucking stupid. Right, final part then. Let's see if we can nail this. Right, I've got 5 pay-per-views, so they're like your monthly events. And
okay.
I'm going to say half of the name, and I want you to complete the name of the pay-per-view.
I'll try.
Okay. So the first one is Royal.
Rumble.
That's 1. Summer.
No.
I'm not going to say SummerSlam.
SummerSlam. There you go.
SummerSlam. Not Summerfest, Mike Larkin, although, Jeremy Piven, dog.
Okay, next one. Survivor.
Series.
There you go. Next one. King.
Of the Ring.
We're on fire.
Damn.
And finally, no.
No.
Now, yeah, the only reason I've said no because you've got 2 potential answers.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. No survivors.
I'll let you have another guess.
No prisoners.
Nope.
I give up.
Well, you could have either had No Way Out.
Okay.
Or you could have had No Mercy.
Okay. I had no luck.
You did all right.
You did pretty good at that one.
I think you peaked too soon. You got the first question right.
Yeah.
Right, guys, I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up there for this time. But it's been a pleasure, Steve. Obviously, thank you very much for coming on for the first time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. It's been a pleasure to look through the eyes of a non-wrestling fan. And I'd like to think this has been a little bit educational as well. You're going to take things away from this that you never knew.
Oh, definitely. I already have. Maybe too much.
Yeah, definitely. So one last time, guys, if you just want to let everyone know where they can find you.
Sure. Facebook is S&M Show Podcast, also S&M Network Central shows. Give us a like on the Facebook. The Twitter's at SM Show 1 or at MCL92. The SoundCloud is soundcloud.com/MC Larkin92. Check out S&M Show Podcast. Stevie Nics Experience, Shooting the Breezes, interviews, just a whole lot of great stuff on there. The Swerve Talk Network, and also Instagram is Larkin_92, where we have also the Swerve Talk Network, which is Golden Age of Everything. We got Wrestling Unleashed. We got S&M Show Podcast, Offshoot Radio, Sunday Segway, Max Wrestling Podcast, which next week is Promo Mania, and I defend my championship against the likes of one Dave Burnham here, Kenny Killa, Evan Money McCabe of the Phoenix and the Butcher. We also got Wrestling's Worst, and we got Ruthless Aggression Era Podcast. So, yeah, we're all on that. And, homie, let them know about the Instagram and the Twitter.
Instagram, IslesMetsSM, and on Twitter, at Steve Nics SM.
So, guys, thank you again. And we will do this again. We'll maybe bring you on a bit later down the line, Steve, and let's see if the wrestling interest has peaked at all. Are you going to be watching WrestleMania?
Am I gonna watch it? I might. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
So if you do, let me know. We maybe get you on a bit further down the line, and we'll discuss WrestleMania.
You know, maybe I'll watch it with somebody who I'm friends with, and will invite me over to his house on his comfy couch. Maybe we could have some pizza and do that. But,
my birthday will be coming up, so you'll be seeing me soon for my birthday. So yeah.
Yeah, but it'd be nice if I could watch WrestleMania with someone. That'd be cool to get me into it.
Sure, we'll see what happens.
I'm not suggesting anything though.
Of course not. I only got one thing to say to you.
What's that?
You will not make this putt, you jackass.
And on that note, I will bid you goodbye. Gentlemen, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Until next time, people. See you later.